And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power of Man podcast. We are live with a very special guest today. I am your host, Rory Paquette. I know you already knew that, but I just need to remind some folks in the cheap seats. Um, we have a couple of housekeeping things to get through real quick. I want to thank everybody for tuning into our live in our private group recently. I want to thank all the folks who have joined our private group recently. Power of Man Within on Facebook has grown by leaps and bounds. Appreciate every one of you who have decided to sign up for that. We have a very special thing that's going on right now. By the time this podcast comes out, we will probably have had our first session already, but we are doing a free 4 session deal, talking about relationships, talking about marriage, talking about, pouring yourself in, leading your family, the whole bit. It's on Wednesdays through February, and that does launch this coming Wednesday. When you hear this podcast, it'll probably be another Wednesday. So just look it up. It's all over our social media stuff. It'll be on our Instagram. If you want to reach us, as you guys already know, at Power of Man Podcast, all one word, on Instagram, or just look me up. And that's my name. It's on the screen. You've heard it a million times. It's also in the show notes on Facebook. For those of you who are, from the last century and still want to send me an email, it's totally fine. We have one. It's Power of Man Podcast, all one word, at gmail.com. All right, before we get rolling, before I introduce this awesome guy, I do have to, as you all know, take a sip of our preferred beverage. Ooh, a little too hot today. I gotta let that cool off. My goodness. But hey, you guys all know, if you're a friend of the program, you know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill coffee. Deep, dark, rich, bold, beautiful. Just like my wife. It's awesome. They do all the right things for all the right reasons. They brew a mean cup of joe and they support veterans, which is why we support them. So look them up on Instagram. Tell them that Power Man sent you at Freedom Hill Coffee. Go take a look. You guys all know the deal. All right, now let's get down to business. I met this guy through a friend of a friend, impressed the heck out of me like immediately. He has so many things going on. A business owner and political candidate, all kinds of other stuff happening. He has owns his own business. We're going to talk about all this stuff today, and it's going to be really great. You're going to love him. Please welcome to the podcast, George Monterrey. George, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing amazing, Rory. Thank you for that. And it's actually funny hearing you say that I impressed you right away, considering how we actually ended up meeting.
It was kind of on accident, yeah.
It was an accident. Yeah, I actually, for the people that don't know, I got asked to come in on a phone call, thinking it was just a phone call. It ended up being a whole show, a whole podcast, and I wasn't even dressed or nothing. I was just
That's
like, "Hey,
right.
what's up?" I don't even think my hair was done. It was weird.
No, it's the Shannon family, projects over there, man. I just put out David Shannon's episode on my other podcast, the Podcaster Nation. So that just came
Okay.
out today while we record this. He just got released about uh, his podcast. So him and everybody in their family all have podcasts, and we were on for his
They
wife's
do.
podcast, Living Well with Bad Habits. And yeah, and they said, "Oh, this guy George is going to join us for the show." And yeah, when you came on, you were looking like, "Wait, this is a show? We're recording?"
Yeah.
You were surprised.
No, it was something, man. But I guess that's part of life, right? You just
Right.
gotta roll with the punches, as they say in the industry, right? You just gotta go with
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I promised these folks a whole lot when I gave them that preamble. So
Yeah.
tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do. Why are we talking to George Monterey today?
Well, I guess if you want to learn some stuff, we got to have a conversation, right? But so my background, my whole adult life has revolved around combat in some sort, right? And whether it's physical combat, whether it's a mental, emotional, spiritual, business, whatever. I mean, and for some strange reason, I think that was part of my mission in life is to be a warrior, to be a combatant. And it started in the Marine Corps, right? So actually, quite frankly, I started in high school. I was in an ROTC program in high school, JROTC program,
Oh, wow.
and my instructors were phenomenal, phenomenal. I mean, my senior Army instructor was a lieutenant colonel, battalion tank commander, ranger from Vietnam, just a tough dude. And his Army instructor was a sergeant major in the Army also. Green Beret, Special Forces, A-Team Commander, Vietnam, Korea. I mean, these guys were just I give them almost all the credit for the man I became today, in with my leadership and the way they taught me. And it was pretty wild because in the Marine Corps, I used, the Marine Corps, um, I they brainwash you, okay? They, you know, they they made me, 7 feet tall, 300 pounds, made out of steel, and I was invincible. That was it.
Right.
And but my leadership came, even though from the Marine Corps, my leadership actually came from these Army instructors that instilled from me very, very young these leadership traits and qualities that I still use today.
Awesome. Now, I know that you practice and teach jiu-jitsu. Is that where you learned that, or had you started training in that before that?
No, so I actually started my combative training when I was 5. My uncle,
Wow.
my yeah, my godfather was a boxer, and he was in the Navy, and a Navy boxer, and which is pretty interesting now looking back at my family. My family has been very militant
Yeah.
in the military, with would that be my great grandfather? My great grandfather was actually a West Point graduate,
Wow. All
became
right.
very very well known, and in the not well known, he was a colonel, I believe, or a general in the Nicaraguan army. And then I had other relatives and family in the military and fought against the Contra and the Sandinistas back in the 70s, I guess that would be
Hmm.
70s. And so he got me into boxing very, very young. Then I went into from boxing into kickboxing and some traditional martial arts. And then I left it for a while. And then when I got into the Marine Corps, I was very lucky enough to become a hand-to-hand combat instructor and martial arts instructor. And I mean, that's where I got my first black belt, was in the MICMAP program, the Marine Corps Martial Arts program in the Marine Corps.
Wow. So you've always then had the military combat influence basically since you were a child.
Yeah.
And so you didn't have a prayer. You were on your way to the military, it sounds like. One way or the other, right?
It was. And the thing about it is that when I was growing up, I was a very uncontrollable kid. Which my family thought, everybody in my family, even my parents, thought I was going to be some sort of delinquent, that I was up to no good. And I was actually, well, I mean, think about it. In the 80s, coming from Latin parents, you messed up, you just got beat, right? So it's not like today. I didn't get timeouts,
Right.
it was like, it was a very interesting time, So as time went on, I realized that that discipline that they try to instill in me, and with the travel. So again, very uncontrollable. I was one of those kids that my family or my parents, instead of um, trying to help me and fix me, which they did try, I think, they just shipped me off to other relatives. So when I was in, I mean, even before I probably started moving when I was 10. So between the ages of 10 and 15, so for those 4 or 5 years, I went to probably three, four, no, 5 middle schools. I was in 3 different countries, just traveling, trying to, keep my nose clean.
Yeah.
And by the time I got to high school, I just begged my mom, just please leave me in one high school. I want to make friends. I want to have some stability. And it kind of, I straightened out my act, and then from there, went to the Marine Corps. And I was one of those guys that I was like, I'll do anything but infantry, right? Weird.
Okay. What was
I'll
that
do
about?
anything but infantry. I just had this weird misconception of everything, really. And so much so that when I was in Nicaragua, when I got shipped to Nicaragua, I was told that I was going to be put in a private school. Now, private schools over there, either you're in a private school or you're on the street. There's not a whole lot of
Okay.
options. Well, private schools, you had to wear a uniform, right? And it was, oddly enough, I was very much against uniforms. I was like, don't put me in a uniform. I told my parents, I told my uncles, my aunts, I said, if you put me in this school where I have to wear a uniform every day, I will get into a fight. I will pick a fight every day until I get kicked out. you know, and
So
they
you
believed me.
were this kind of
Yeah,
kid then.
yes, I was. I'm very uncontrollable. And oddly enough, I spent all of my high school years and into 8 years of my adult life in uniform, you know? So very weird, right? But
No,
I told my, huh?
no, go ahead. Go ahead. I want you to keep going. I'll save
Sure.
that one for a minute.
Sure. So I told my recruiter, I was like, I'll do anything but infantry. I don't want to go in the infantry.
Okay.
So he's like, well, I said, I would love to do military intelligence. Okay. Sure, no problem. I had a high enough score on my ASVAB that I could do anything in the military. So I picked a military intelligence. I go take the military intelligence test, a D lab, they call it, and I got a 98 on it. I got a 98. He said, you failed. I said, what? I said, yeah, right. So I was like, what do you mean? I got a 98, you know? He goes, no, you need 100 to pass.
Oh, I didn't realize that
Right?
either. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, me either. I was like, 98, awesome. So I got a 98, took it again, 96, took it again, 98, and you can only take it three times.
Oh, geez.
So I missed military intelligence. And so I missed a lot actually. It was kind of funny. So even before then, I got accepted into West Point, right? So I got accepted into West Point because my great grandfather, you kind of have to have some sort of lineage or a letter from a, statesman or something like that.
Okay.
Um, and that infuriated my mom that I didn't go to West Point. I decided to enlist in the Marine Corps, you know. And so I missed that, missed military intelligence. So then my recruiter says, well, what about security forces? I don't know. Tell me about it, right? So he tells me a little bit about it. I said, okay, that sounds cool. So I enlist, I'm in security forces. I go to boot camp. And have you ever watched Full Metal Jacket?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So at the end of Full Metal Jacket, not the end of Full Metal Jacket, at the end of boot camp, they gather everybody around and they call your name and they tell you what your job is per se.
Right.
And very commonly known in the military, an 0300 and 0311 is an infantry designation for the Marine Corps. So the drill instructor calls my name, Monterrey, 0311. I said, whoa, wait a second. Wait a second. I was like, I didn't sign up for infantry. I signed up for security forces. And he goes, yeah, well, security forces is an infantry sector. You have to be in the infantry first to go to security forces. And at that moment, I knew my recruiter got me. It was it was one of those things where
Right.
recruiters will tell you anything to get you to in, right?
Right.
You didn't tell me I had to go to infantry first, right?
Right.
But I absolutely loved it. I could not imagine my life in the Marine Corps doing anything but infantry.
Wow.
It was the best time of my life, and I didn't even know it at the time. I foolishly got out of the Marine Corps. Um, I should have stayed in.
What is it you miss the most about it?
I miss my brothers. I miss
Yeah.
the camaraderie. I miss doing, and this is something I tell the kids that I teach. I tell them do hard things every day. Do a hard thing every day. I just was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day and watching and listening to how and it's wild. He says all the same stuff that I say, but so much better.
Right.
His
Yeah.
verbiage is I hear him talk. I go, wait a second, I say that. I just don't say it that way.
Right.
But he was talking to, I believe it was a SEAL. He was talking to a former SEAL, and he said the formative times in our life are the hardest times in our life, right? The things that transform us, the things that make us the best version of us, we have to go through the crap. We have to go through the worst times to be the best versions of ourselves, right? He said it way better, but that's how I interpreted
Yeah.
it.
No, amen to that, 100%.
Yeah.
So he says it better than both of us. So I mean, we're in the same boat. I understand. Jordan's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, no shame there. But so you did actually conform finally and join the infantry.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
Well, I mean, I had no choice now. I mean,
Right.
I signed on the line, right? So he joined the infantry, and again, I excelled. I did so good. I was the so in boot camp, it's much like. I shouldn't say much like high school, but they rank you like in high school, right? You
Hmm.
have your valedictorian, your which would be your honor grad, your company honor grad.
Sure.
You have your platoon honor grads. And so out of 431 Marines that graduated that day, I was a top guy. I was the number one guy. I was a platoon
Nice.
the company honor grad.
Congrats. Very cool.
Thank you. So that kind of was the pace that I set for myself for the rest of my time in the Marine Corps. I went to infantry school, graduated top of the class security infantry school, top of the class security forces school. Um, I became a sergeant in 2.5 years, which is very quick
Yeah.
considering how the Marine Corps promotes. Um,
Wow, man.
so yeah, it was something that my friends in the Marine Corps, they were my friends, right? But in the Marine Corps, it's very different where even though you're friends, when you outrank somebody, they technically can't be your friend anymore. It's one of those kind of things. So my friends would always clown on me and make fun of me because I was the motivated guy. I was the guy who was making it happen. I was in charge. I was a freaking nerd.
Yeah, you were the sergeant.
I was a sergeant.
That's right.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting position to be in so young.
Okay.
I enlisted when I was 17 years old. By the time I was 19, when I turned 19 was when the towers fell.
Oh, okay.
So I was a corporal at the time. I had 25 guys working for me. And that was one of the most chaotic times in our history. You know what I mean? That we can
Sure.
probably remember,
Yeah.
especially being in the military. And one of the things that I um, realized later, much, much later, how much it affected me was I was put in charge of the Marine Corps barracks, right? My unit got split up. We all did different jobs and whatnot. So myself and another buddy of mine, Jimmy Kirk, uh, he was a corporal also at the time, but we called him Captain Kirk because, from Star Trek and all that.
Right. Yep.
Um, they put us in charge of the Marine Corps barracks. My captain comes up to me, looks at me dead in the eye. He goes, "If anybody dies here, it's your fault." Okay.
Wow. Okay.
19 years old. Imagine that. 19 years old. Anybody dies, it's your fault. 19-year-olds now can barely live on their own. They're still living at home.
Yeah, they have no idea what accountability like that even looks like.
No.
So yeah, for sure. That's a lot to be put on a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the thing, again, we were brainwashed. It was different. The only answer I said was,
Sure.
"Aye, aye, sir." You know what I mean? That's it. And that was it, right? It was on me. Anybody died, it's on me.
Wow. Now, all that stuff that you learn, growing up, obviously, but when you're in the Corps, you learn to conform a little bit, but you still
Yes.
held on to your independent streak clearly with everything that I know about you since then. So, you're in the Marine Corps. You have these honors. You learn leadership. You obviously learn accountability because it's heaped upon you like that. You come out of the Marine Corps, and I understand the regret. I work with a lot of veterans, and pretty much every guy, if you ask him what do you miss the most, it's my brothers. It's what I miss, and I get that 100%. But you leave the Marine Corps, you're out. Now it's time for regular civilian adult life, right?
Okay.
Um, what's that transition like, and where'd you go, and what'd you do next?
It was horrible. I floundered.
Ouch.
Um, yeah, you go from a world where you know your mission every day. I wake up, they tell me what to do, and I execute. Easy, right?
Right.
And so I come out here and I believed that what they told me was true, right? I had no reason to believe that what the Marine Corps told me would not be true. And interestingly enough, when you get out of the Marine Corps, they give you a 2 weeks transition program. It's called TAPS. It's called the Transition Assistance Program.
Hmm.
And which I always later on I found odd because they spent in the Marine Corps, they spent 3 months plus training you. So boot camp is 3 months, another month plus of infantry school, another almost 2 months or 2 months of infantry school, 2 months infantry school, another 2 months security forces school. So I mean, you're looking at three, seven, almost a year of indoctrinating you into the Marine Corps way of life, and then years and years and years of living it. Then they give you 2 weeks to unprogram you, right?
Right.
There you go. Good luck, right? Doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
So now I'm in the world, uh, the civilian world, and I go to try to find a job. What do I do? And so what I believed was the Marine Corps tells you everybody wants your leadership, everybody wants a guy like you, everybody wants your work ethic. You're going to find a job, no problem, right? Which essentially, I mean, now that I hire people, yes, I love hiring Marines, I love hiring military because they do have something different, right?
Right. Now that you're a
And
business
I've
owner, you feel that way and you can implement that.
right.
Right.
But as being going into the workforce and as an employee, some people don't realize is looking for a job is a full-time job, right?
Can be, yeah.
People don't treat it that way. If you want a job, you have to go out there and hustle. You have to go and get applications in, interviews, drug tests, more applications, more interviews, drug tests, screening. There's psychological training, there's screening that they do now, all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And if you're not on that every day, I question, do you really want a job? You know?
Right. Yeah.
But that's just my opinion, you know?
So you come out, you're looking for a job. Now, did you go to work for somebody else for a while and learn some stuff, or did you
I
end up
I
saying, "Look, I'm
did.
not going to do this. I'm going to go open my own"?
No, I did actually. So one of the things that I learned very young, I actually remember 10th grade history class, Mr. Miller. I always told him that if I wrote a book or if anything I do, I would give him credit because he said two things to me that have always stayed in my mind. One was experience is the slowest way to learn, right? So surround yourself with people with more experience than you so you don't make their mistakes. You can go through life a little bit faster, a little bit better. And I've done that. It stayed with me. Two was there's only four things that you can do in life after high school, right? You can go to school, you can get a job, you can go for the military, or you can work for yourself, right? I mean, I guess you can do nothing if you want to do number five. That's not really doing it.
Right.
So I was very fortunate enough to experience all of that, right? Um, First, I went to the military. Then I worked for people. I went back to school to become a firefighter and EMT. I spent time in emergency service and I opened up my own businesses. So I feel fortunate that I can speak on those topics.
Yeah.
I didn't go to university per se. I don't have a college degree or anything like that, which has worked for me, you know. But I wouldn't say that to everybody. I just
Sure.
I understand the hustle and I can do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a time and a place for it, and it kind of depends on what your path is. You know what I mean, and what
Yeah,
you're looking at. So, I
yeah,
mean, I've got two boys, and one is wants to be a CPA, so you need to go to college for
got to do that.
that.
Yeah,
You gotta. So he's doing that, and he's working, and doing all this stuff at the same time. And then my younger son is like, I want nothing to do with college. I'm on my own. I own my own thing. I want to do my own business. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. Yada yada yada. And so he's doing
yeah.
that. So
Which is funny because he'll learn. That's the main thing a lot of people say is I don't want people telling me what to do. I'm going to do my own thing. Well, that's great. You know, because at a job, a job, right, just over broke, you have
right,
you have one person telling you what to do, your manager, director, or your boss, right? When you're in business, I have hundreds of people telling me what to do,
right.
right? So I mean I don't
All
have
your
a boss. I
customers.
have
Yep.
hundreds of bosses, yeah.
Right.
And that's one of the things I like to coach people on when they go into business is listen, this is very humbling, you know.
Right.
People think when you're self-employed or a business owner, which there's a difference there. I love to teach on the cash flow quadrant.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh yeah.
from Robert Kiyosaki.
Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah. Rich Dad
Yep.
Poor Dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's
Awesome.
a big difference there, and people think they're business owners when they're actually self-employed. But I tell people, listen, you got to be humble about this thing because you don't have a boss, you have bosses,
Right.
hundreds of them. Who's the boss? The person that pays me is the boss, right? So if I don't do my job right, if I don't do produce that service, give them that quality, they're not going to pay me,
Yeah, for sure.
you
Love it.
know?
This is a perfect segue because you do actually own your own business and you
I do.
also do teach other people, entrepreneurs, how to open their own businesses, and you help them with that. So, talk a little bit about the business you own, and what you do there, and then go ahead and tell everybody, about helping everybody else with the business also, because I know that's a big part of what you do.
It is, and it's some of my favorite things. So what I realize is more than anything, one of my gifts has been to take what I know and be able to verbalize it and give it to somebody else, right? Transfer of knowledge has been something that I don't know how or why, but it's just a gift, right? Everybody's got a gift, right? And it's one of those things that once you find, I believe, once you find your gift and you implement that, something that you do better than anybody else. Now, of course, there's other instructors and teachers better than me, but that's something that I feel has been something so good for me. Man, you don't almost don't work anymore, right? You just it's great. I always tell people I'm already kind of semi-retired, you know. So I
Okay.
mean, look, it's the middle of the day and we're chilling here having a
Uh,
conversation, right?
Exactly. So you
Um,
you are a business owner right
I
now,
am.
to
Yes.
be more specific, and the business you own is
I have a few, actually. I have
okay.
a few. So my what I would consider my main business, my baby, is my school. It's called Defense Combatives, DEFCOM for short. People see that
Okay.
for DEFCOM. And I teach self-defense. I teach people to become dangerous. And I say it that way because I mean it that way. People are like, "Oh, I want to be dangerous." But going back to what Jordan Peterson said about being dangerous,
Right.
it resonates, right? It's worthless to be a man and not be dangerous. What are you really? You know?
Yeah.
But so I teach people to be dangerous. I still use my combatives program that I used in the Marine Corps, and I introduced jiu-jitsu to it, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. The reason is because when I first started my school, um, people it was very small. It was very small. I mean, if I were to tell and I wasn't that good of a salesman, I guess, because I'd tell, hey man, yeah, this is great. I'm going to teach you to be dangerous. You can kill anybody, blah 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 blah, right? And, not in so many words, but people go, ooh, I don't know if I want to do that to somebody. You know what I mean? I don't know if I want to,
Right.
you know. So I quickly came to realize that people are actually afraid of being hurt, but they're also afraid to hurt somebody,
Hmm.
right? Um, Not my problem, right? Unless I'm trying to unless I'm trying to sell something, right?
Yeah.
So I introduced Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back then was becoming very popular. Um, and people were starting to like it and kind of wonder about it. And it was sold as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is sold as the gentle art, right? Much like judo, jiu-jitsu, judo is translated to the gentle way, jiu-jitsu, the gentle art, right?
Hmm.
Japanese based, very nice.
Okay.
However, at that time, even though I was a black belt in combatives and I held several other black belts, I was not ranked in jiu-jitsu. So I had to find an instructor, and in that process, I started becoming ranked in jiu-jitsu. Long story short, it's been April will be 15 years that we've been operating. Um, I've trained thousands of people. I'm a first degree black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu now, and and it's something that I want to do the rest of my life. Now, I realize that, I could sell everything else, which I'll get into, but that's the one thing that I want to do the rest of my life. I feel that that's where I can make a huge impact face to face, person to person every single day.
Sure. That's huge to be able to make that, discernment. This is what I love to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the only business I'm going to do. Or, some things you do for money, some things you do because you need to, because you got to pay bills, and some things you do because you love them. And not everybody gets to do something that they love. So that's great that that hits your heart like that.
Yeah, well, and discernment, I think, is the right word, because it's something that people do have to understand and discern and go through because what you do necessarily for money doesn't necessarily mean it's the passion of your life, and vice versa. Your passion doesn't always generate a lot of income.
Sure.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Not always.
Most podcasters actually are in that boat
Yeah,
where, where they love doing what they're doing, but it just doesn't make them a whole lot of money, if any, so
right.
it takes years to get there. So I know they're all hearing this also right now. So,
Hope so. Yeah.
yeah,
Stay
but
on it. Stay on it. Stay on it. Stay
absolutely.
on it.
That's the only way you get to, like where I'm at,
Yeah.
finally, thank goodness. But I love that. Now you take all that, you do teach other people. Tell me a little bit about not the school for jujitsu, but sort of the unofficial school of helping other people start a business.
Yeah. So,
Because you do love to
um,
teach, you can tell.
yes.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I do. I do. I love it. But yeah, so when I got to well, I'll tell you a quick timeline before that. So
yeah.
I opened up the school and then I opened up a gym, like a 24-hour fitness facility gym, right? And I have a picture at my desk of my cousin and myself when we were 18. I was 18 years old, and we're working out at Porky's Gym in Miami, right? And Porky's Gym at the time was like the only 24-hour gym there at the time. And now, you can't even compete if you're not 24 hours. But
Right. Yeah.
back then, it was one of the things, right? And I'm looking around, and I tell him, I said, you know what? This is what I want to do one day. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I want to own a gym. I want this. And for some reason, we took a picture that day, and it had the date on it because I had just gotten back from senior night where we ended up going to Disney World, and it was like senior night 1999 or whatever. And so it was almost like date stamped. I took that picture and I hang that picture in my gym now, and he called me up. He goes, "Man, do you remember when you said what you said, and now look at you, you have your gym and all that?" It's like you put it out there, man. You got to have dreams. You got to dream
There you
big,
go. That's
you know.
awesome.
So open up the gym with the intention to sell it, mind you. A lot of people don't know that. Once I had my school and I started figuring out this business thing, I said, I my very, very first business was in finance. I owned a financial firm. A lot of things people don't know about. My very first business was a financial firm, and I learned the money game. If you're in business, if you're in life and you don't know the money game, you have to learn it. Period. End of story. You have to learn how money works. As if you don't, you're going to flounder and you're not going to understand why. Right. So I used to sell stocks, excuse me, uh, investments. I was a Series 6 and 63 licensed, so I was able to sell mutual funds and retirement plans and stuff like that. And so where I didn't, I understood the process of buy low, sell high. Very simple process, right? Concept, I should say. Very simple concept. Buy low, sell high. And I go, what's fun for me, again, all right, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. What's fun for me is creating these ideas, bringing them to life, right? Making them profitable, and then sell it. Because for some reason, I keep thinking, how can I help people? I don't know why that's a thing for me, but I go, you know what? Because I do have a passion for entrepreneurship, right? And if you were to say to me, well, George, um, I would love to start a business, but and then fill in the blank, right? Anything after the but to me is what their fear is, right?
Nice.
What's your I would love to start a business, but and they're not going to say I'm afraid to or I'm afraid of. That's not what they're going to say. But they are going to tell you what they're afraid of. And so I go, what if I took whatever it is you're afraid of away? Well, what do you mean? I said, I will start the business, I will develop it, I'll make it profitable, and then I'll sell it to you, right? So all the what if it doesn't happen? What if I fail? What if you win? You know,
Yeah. What if it works?
what if it works?
Yeah.
I'm not good. I'm not this. I'm not that. So whatever their fear is, I take it away and I go, here's the business. Here's the business that you wanted. There you go. Don't mess it up, you know? But
That's
to me,
interesting.
that's the
Yeah.
fun part. Yeah, to me, that's the fun. The fun part is starting it, developing it, because it comes with a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Starting a business comes with a lot of challenges. But that's where I thrive and I love it, and that's the most fun for me. After that, the day-to-day mundane, sure, take care of it. It'll make you money. It's already made me money. Boom, done. We're ready to go.
So how do you determine who you're going to work with and stuff like that? I mean, is there like an application process for people? If someone's sitting here going, "Oh man, that sounds great. You're going to make a
Yeah,
business, you're going to make it profitable, then I get to come in. Hey, how do I sign up, right?"
yeah, I pray a lot. I pray a lot. And people ask me that, oh, George, you got this going on, you got that going on, da, 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 and you got kids, and now I'm married, and how do you do it? I said, I pray a lot, man. Like I really feel like that's what got me to where I am today. That is a center of for me, right? I don't push religion or anything like that on people, but there is a God. There is something much, much, much greater than us that gives us our breath every single day.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe that, that's fine. You know, if you do believe that, I'm letting you know, keep that faith, keep that belief because it's what's going to get you through the hardest times of your life. You know, everybody that woke up today has a 100% success ratio, you know,
Good point.
because yeah, I
Uh,
mean, the moment God's done with us, we don't wake up.
that this is true. This is very true. So, yeah, is there a particular type of person you're looking to work with on this? I mean, they have to have a certain amount of money down, or they got to have a credit score, or is it really just you meet them, you talk to them, and you decide if you're going to work with them, and you
Yeah,
trust God?
yeah, I do trust God, and
Yeah.
it is kind of that feeling because when you lay it out for somebody, um, you know, I can't remember who told me this story. I heard this story, and it goes something, and it's a very simple parable. It's kind of like you can see yourself as a success, right? As much money as you want, the cars that you want, the house that you want, the wife that you want, the husband that you want, the life that you want, the kids that you want, all of it. You can see it, right? And it's right here, but you're over here, right? And if God were to say to you, you are going to have that, right? I promise you this, right? You'd probably be really excited, right? You'd be, holy crap, I'm gonna have everything. And we can't have everything. I'm gonna have everything. But what God doesn't tell you is the plan that you have to take to get there because there's a lot of pitfalls. You're going to
Yeah.
get beat up. You're going to get scraped. You're
Oh
going to
yeah.
get stabbed. You're going to get shot. You're going to get dragged by car. Wait a second. Hold on a second, God. You mean to tell I got to go through all that just to get what I want? And people go, then they start rethinking. Maybe it's not worth it,
Yeah.
right? So it's one of those things where um, we don't know the plan, right? We don't know the plan. But thankfully, I know the plan, right? So if you were to come to me and say, George, I want this, this, and this, great. This is what has to happen, not what can happen. This is what has to happen. Boom, 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 to get to that. Are you willing to sacrifice and suffer to do that? And if people say yes, and I'm one of those you got to tell me yes a couple of times, right? Because I need to know that somebody's serious and I'm going to lay it out. You're going to suffer. It's going to suck, And I tell people myself, I'm not proud of it, but I lost a marriage. I lost my home. I've lost everything, right? I almost lost my children. Thank God that I'm a good enough person that people saw through that. But I've lost everything, right? And I still became a millionaire.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things that and I'm not being braggadocious about it. I'm just letting people know that it's doable. You just have to go through the crap. You have to get beat up.
Yeah.
You have to cry yourself to sleep. You know what I mean? You have to wake up nervous, scared. How am I going to make it today? And that's where I lean on my faith.
Wow, man. I think you and I have similar stories in a lot of ways. I kind of just picked that up from the moment I met you. But
Yeah.
um, you mentioned I want to digress for a second, only because I love your story. but you just brought up some stuff that needs to be unpacked for all the guys listening. The A lot of guys feel that way about being divorced,
You're not
about,
alone. You're not alone. Yep.
exactly. They feel completely isolated and alone,
I
they
did
feel
too.
like, so did I.
Yeah.
They feel, losing your kids possibly. That's like every dad's fear, period. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Losing them or not being able to provide for them or whatever, offshoot that there is, losing them all the material stuff, which just makes you feel like a total failure as a man, in today's
Hmm.
world. So, you threw a lot of stuff in there that was very heavy, that you've overcome. You know what I mean? Which, power to you.
Thank you.
But I want to just stop for a second, just to make sure that all the guys out there understand that, even though we try to gloss over it, and even though we don't really always want to talk about it and stuff, it does happen, even to the best of guys. And one thing that I love about you, especially right now in this moment, to talk to a lot of the guys in our audience is about is you're what can happen if you don't give up.
Can't give up. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You mentioned, feeling alone and everything else. You don't need to get real personal about all that stuff, as much as you want, but just for a second, um, how'd you get through that? Was it just faith?
Um, I, I, yeah, it has to be. I mean, I can't think of if I were to do it just as a man. I'm just a man. You know what I mean? There's nothing supernatural about me per se, until I start to invoke God's promise into my life and invoke God's power into my life through the Holy Spirit. And it's one of those things that. Um, And there's a lot of t-shirts and cool sayings about that, like the devil laughs when the devil laughs when he watches me take a knee until he hears me say amen.
Amen. Yeah. Right.
But there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that, and something that in my reflection and understanding that once you go through things, nothing scares you anymore. I've been to that point where I've lost everything. I've lost everything. So now, I'll give you a quick story from last year. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, it is actually so facts tell, stories sell, right? It's something I learned a long time ago. I've been in my mind. I've been writing this book of my stories, and I call it facts tell, stories tell. Facts tell, stories sell.
Right.
And when you've lost everything, last year, 2 years ago, I promised myself when I get my first when I make my first $1 million, I'm gonna go out and buy my the C8 Corvette. Right, I loved it from the moment I saw it, and I told a couple of buddies because you got to be held accountable, right? Like you have to find somebody you trust, tell them your dreams and your goals, as silly as they sound. If they laugh at you, you're like in the right direction,
Right.
right? Like it's big enough. And I told him, I said, when I hit my first $1 million, I want to buy my Corvette, right? And my buddy he called me up. He goes, "You SOB, you did it! I can't believe it!" You know what I mean? Because he saw my Corvette, and I was so excited. I went to the dealership. I cut a check for it, right, and paid for it in cash, and it was awesome. And and let me see, about a year and some change later, I came across what I believe would be an awesome opportunity to buy another company, to buy into another company, right? And I sold my Corvette. I sold it to buy into a new company. And oh, what's going on? Are you crazy? Or and all this kind of stuff. And but I said, guys, I can buy another one. I'm going to build this business up and I'll make it profitable because I have a system. I know how to do it. I'll just buy another one. As a matter of fact, if I do it right, I can buy another three, whatever. But it opened my mind and opened my eyes to go, wow, man, people are really caught up in that material stuff, right? Because they're in a fear of loss.
Right.
And after you lose everything, man, I'm not afraid of anything. And it sounds weird, right? Like I'm not, I don't want to be like weird about it, but like if my wife were to come in and say, I, I'm leaving, I never want to see you again, I'm gonna go, okay, you know, if my, if I'll figure it out, you know what I mean?
Right.
If something happened to like, if you can imagine the most important thing to you or the thing that you hold most dear in your life, and then you lose it, that's a pivotal point in your mind where you have to make a decision. Is this going to be the thing that breaks me, or is this the thing that is going to take me deeper into my path? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I could before I was fearless in a superficial way, because I wasn't afraid to die, and I'm not afraid to, but now I feel like this fear of anything has just diminished, and I think a lot has to do with knowing that there's a bigger promise for me.
Yeah. I love that. It's people who have lost it all and have come back understand every single thing you're saying right now. And it's funny the way you talk about the Corvette because it wasn't really possessing and it was about owning. It wasn't about the Corvette itself. It was about the
Right.
freedom to go purchase it and have that. That was what was the accomplishment. And then you turned
Yes.
around and then it was just an asset. And you're like, well, I want to continue to grow. That's an asset that's worth money. There you go. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So there wasn't an emotional attachment to the asset anymore necessarily. It was like, well, now it's just a tool.
Right.
So that's huge growth right there. That a lot
Right.
of guys don't get unless they've been through that. And I do want to applaud you on rescuing the whole wife example, just in case she happens to hear this. But
Yeah.
right when you said, yeah, if she leaves, oh well, I'm like, oh no, if his wife hears this, that's not going to go well. And then you said the thing that I don't want to lose most in my whole life, and I'm like, focus on that when you're in trouble later for saying that, okay?
Yeah. Well, see, and this is the thing, right? This is my this is my round two, okay? Which I'm sure many guys have been in that position. Unfortunately, it's not. I'm not trying to glorify it, right?
Right,
But it is a part of reality. It's part of our life.
for sure.
And I've had, let me get this right, uh, 17 years between marriages, right? So I didn't jump into this,
Wow, yeah,
right? I've been single for a long time, and so I treat this relationship much different, much different than the other ones.
yeah,
Um, and rightfully so. She's a different person. She's her own person,
yeah,
and one of the things that I struggled with was um, I struggled with reminding myself that she's not them, right? She's not my past. She's who she is right now, and I've gotten to know her for who she is, not who I believed she was through some other people, if that makes sense,
yep,
you know. So I'm much more open with her. I have much more conversations with her, and she knows my position, right? She doesn't have to guess. She knows, right? And she's um it's just gonna sound harsh, but she knows that if she were to say to me, "I'm leaving," I'd say, "Okay." I'm not going to. Obviously, hey babe, what's the problem? Is there something I can fix? Is there something we can fix? Because it's two, right? It's two, and when two become one, this is very hard to rip apart. But if everything's no, 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 I mean, it could be me, it could be her, it could be both of us. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I go, okay, and I reroute my plan
hmm
and carry on because it's life. Life has to carry on.
right,
I adjust my priorities. I adjust my plan. Adjusting plans. I'll give you for instance. um, so my plan, well, if you ever want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, okay?
right,
My plan was to be retired and done no later than no later than 45, right? At 45 years old, I was going to be done. And then I had this mayor opportunity. If I become the mayor, I have the opportunity to run 2 terms. So that would put me out to 50. So I'll be 50 years old. Great plan. So I thought, great plan. Everything's good. I have everything's motion, man. By the time I'm 50, my youngest kid will be graduating high school. I'm free as a bird. Babe, where do you want to live? Let's go anywhere you want, whatever you want, all this kind of thing.
Right.
Well, my beautiful bride over here tells me that we're having another kid.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But wow.
But wow, right? I mean, she's young. That's great for her. I'm an old man. Look, I got gray, you
And
know.
who are you talking
You
to
know.
right
So
now? Well,
but again,
congratulations for
so
that. I mean,
thank
that
you.
is a blessing. So congratulations on
It
that.
it is.
Yeah.
But
But
think about
yeah,
it, man. It's like,
talk about changing your
wow,
plan.
change of plans. Here we go. So is that going to be where? And this is a very real. I'm not a. This is a very real subject. I think in the world today, um, because it's easy to. I don't want that kid. I don't want that kid. You know,
Right. Yeah.
and people go and very quick to go to abortions, very quick to dismiss this life that you created, right? That I created. Um, and so, I do talk to people about that, because I'm not a believer in that. I do believe that people need to make their own choices, and I'm not pushing that one way or the other, sort of. But I do believe, in life and protection of life. So I go, listen,
Sure.
man, instead of killing that kid, just put him up for adoption. You know, give this kid a chance to live their life, just like you got a chance to live your life. You know what I mean? So, um, so if I was dead set on that, which I'm not, I do believe in blessings. I do believe that there's a purpose and everything. So here we go. I got another kid coming. You know what I mean? So there go my retirement plans.
They just got to delay them. That's all. Just got to put them off a little
Yeah,
bit. That's all.
yeah.
So, but that just means that you're doing such a great job, being a dad and being a mentor and everything else that, God said you're not done yet, brother. So, get to
That's
work. You
that's the
got,
way I took it.
got
Yep,
another
that's the way I
mission.
took it. I do.
Um, you and I could talk for hours on all these different topics. So
I bet.
I
Yeah.
would love to have you back on at some point. I really would. But I know that we want to get close to wrapping it up here soon, and there's another thing we want to talk about. So um, you mentioned again, you just throw the stuff out there like hand grenades, and the guys listening are like, wait, what did he say? You're running for mayor. On top of
I am.
everything else, on top of your businesses and your mentorship and being a Marine and all this other stuff you talked about in jiu-jitsu, you're also running for mayor of your fairly small town. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, thirty
Yeah.
thousand people. Yeah, pretty small.
Right. Okay. Moderately.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously, tell us a little bit about that. But what I know a lot of these guys are going to be most curious about is a lot of us sit here and we watch what's going on in the news and we all have our opinions, one side or the other, one way or the other. And we all think to ourselves at some point, man, you know what? I need to do something different. I got to make a difference.
Yes.
What I'm always telling people is, hey, make the difference at your kitchen table first. You know what I mean? With you and your family, then you can. A lot of guys, though, work very hard at that, and they are making those changes, in their homes with their families and even branching out into their communities, maybe. What makes you, okay, George, believe, hey, I've done this already. Now I'm ready to go serve such a much larger, community in a much larger capacity. What's the thinking there? What goes on in your mind when you make that transition to say, I want to do this much bigger thing?
So it's interesting that people see it as a bigger thing. You know what I mean? Because when I see it, it's no different than running a business or organization of sorts, right? And I'm not getting shot at this time, right? I mean, it's leadership, and I'm not getting shot at. I don't have to worry about, getting blown up on the street somewhere. I'm in little town USA, Watertown, Wisconsin, and this is not an active war zone. So leadership, in my opinion, is quite different when you run the risk of losing your life every day, right?
100%, 100%, sure.
So, and that might sound pretty extreme, but that's how I feel about it. And so running a city, running any kind of organization, if you have the right span and control in what we call in leadership span and control. Excuse me. It doesn't make any different. It doesn't make any difference if you're running, um, uh, a 100-person organization, a district, a city, a state, or a country. You know what I mean? If you have the right span of control and understand how that works, in my opinion, it's really not that hard, right? You have to keep the budget right? Because money makes this whole thing go, right? And one of the biggest reasons why people fail in business and people fail in I guess politics, if running something in politics, they have poor money management.
Hmm.
They can't keep a budget. They have to keep borrowing money from let's say the city, you got to keep borrowing money from the state, or you got to keep borrowing money from somewhere, and then that's how you end up in these program-filled cities that now is not profitable. You know, people will leave your city, which is what's happening in Watertown right now, unfortunately. Our city is digressing, regressing. It's not moving forward.
I see. Okay. Just in terms of your own city, and people don't really have to know Watertown in order to understand, this. But just in short, what are your, top three goals for, becoming the mayor and changing things in the city, and how does, if somebody else is out there thinking about doing the same thing, maybe they can learn from what your goals are right now.
Sure. My I guess top three goals would be number one, transparency, right? A lot of people, I believe, I know for a fact in our city, but in a lot of the cities, they aren't very transparent with their constituents. They're not transparent in their city. They wanted, oh man, if we told them the truth, maybe they wouldn't vote for me again. Or if we told them the truth, then they would fill in the blank. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So you got to be transparent because I believe in leadership. My number one leadership rule, well, I should say my number one leadership rule is people don't care about what you know. They want to know that you care, right? And with that, you have to have transparency. Listen, I care about you so much that I'm going to tell you the bad stuff too, right? Not just the good stuff, not just the I love yous, but hey, you're messing up. You got to give both. You got to give them both.
Sure.
So transparency is one. Two is having people understand servant leadership, right? So, which brings me to my next leadership rule is that you pass the buck, or you don't pass the buck, you pass the baton, right? So,
Mm,
what happens is it's easy to point fingers and say, "Well, it's not my fault. It's his fault because he didn't do this, he didn't do that, and it's not my fault. It's her fault." And they would do the same thing. Everybody's pointing fingers when you're in a leadership position, and I used to tell this to my guys all the time. I said, guys, if you do something right, it's your fault. If you do something wrong, it's my fault, right? And it's my job to be that block between the upper echelon leadership and my guys. I will rip up my guys. I will chastise I will discipline my guys, right? And it stops at me. Everything's my fault. So it's very hard for people to understand that when you have a mayor who will say, "Oh, it's not my fault. Something's messed up because so and so hasn't done their job. So and so hasn't." It's all my fault,
right.
right? And when
Yeah.
somebody does something right, hey, look at the water department. Look what a great job they did. Doesn't matter. They didn't know what I did behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Hey, look at the sewage department. Look at the rec department. Look at man. These guys aren't they doing such a great job? What an awesome city we have, right? And everybody's like, yeah, man, we have an awesome city, right? A leader is not going to go off and tell you, man, look what a great job I did. Look at how good I'm doing. Look at I'm doing. Hey, man, you want to vote for me again? Look at that's going to come naturally once people see, oh, this is getting better.
So transparency and accountability.
Accountability. Yep. So,
Yeah.
and having that servant leadership.
Yeah. Nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. Very nice.
Third,
Nice.
those are my top two for sure. The third thing that I guess I want to do is give people their voice back. I think our city, a lot of people in America have lost their voice. Um, Nobody listens,
Yeah.
and I want to be that voice for them, because it's still we the people, it's still America until further notice, you know what I mean? But it's still we the people. The people have control. The people have the power. And I think the people forgot. I think the people forgot where the power actually lies, and they have to remember that. I'm trying to remind them of that,
Yeah.
you know?
That's heavy. I love that. I mean, that platform alone gives you my vote. So,
Ah, thank you.
you know, if I lived there, you'd have it, man, for sure. And
Thanks, man.
it sounds like you've had an interesting path, getting getting through this election.
Yeah,
Not a
oh
lot of
yeah.
people want to hear things like accountability and transparency and servant leadership.
Well, it's also their buzzwords, right? Like there's a difference between just saying it and living it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, everybody says it until it's time to actually show their cards.
Right.
So, yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, I tell people like, I'm not a career politician. I'm a businessman. I'm a businessman.
right.
I'm not a politician. So I don't. I mean, yeah, there's a thing where you have to be liked enough for people to buy your product, but Jeff Bezos doesn't give a damn if you like him or not. You know what I mean?
True. Very true.
Nobody cares. I mean, all these guys, they don't care if you like them or not. Guess what? You're gonna buy their product.
Right. Yeah,
So it's one
absolutely.
of those things.
Well, I love it, man. I've taken a lot of your time. I absolutely love the introspection, the transparency you showed just during this, interview today, letting everybody in, sharing your story. So thank you for all that. Anybody who spends any time listening to you and doesn't get that you're just a genuine, authentic guy who's out there trying to help is not paying attention. It is not listening very well.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate that.
I hope that when people do hear this, that they get the idea of who they're dealing with over there. As we kind of wrap things up, is there any let's transition from your constituents over to our listeners, just a little
Yeah.
bit. And for the husbands, the fathers who are listening to this, for the guys who are struggling, who are working on very actively their marriages, their businesses, being fathers, just trying to be better men, tomorrow than they are today. What's maybe one thing you can throw out there, encouragement or advice or anything, whatever's coming off your heart right now, you know what I mean, that you want to throw out to those guys to help them get through the day?
I think as men, we have to remember that we are the leaders, right? We're called to be leaders. We're called to sacrifice um, the good of ourselves for the good of many, right? Sacrifice the one for the many, right? And whether that many is, and maybe there's some guys on here that don't have kids. Maybe it's just you and your girlfriend or your wife. You know what I mean? If you're gonna make her your wife, let her know, like not just have her believe, but let her know that you are willing to sacrifice, to give you guys the life that you want, right? Dream big, dream big. People are so afraid to dream big and write it down. As a matter of fact, let me show you something before we go. I carry with me my goals, right? I carry my goals with me all the time, right? Here they are, little
Wow.
three by
Okay.
five card, right? I look at them, I read through them, I check them off as I go. This is my 2025 goals, and share them with the people that you care about the most, right? But George, what if they laugh at me? Good, you know, it's okay for people to laugh at you, you know, um, especially the people that are closest to you, because it's a really weird dynamic. The people that you expect to encourage you the most and believe in you the most, they know you the most, right? And people that know me go, freaking George, that little knucklehead, he couldn't even, he's gonna be successful. Are you kidding me? He's gonna be a delinquent, because they saw me grow up. They said you can't be a prophet in your own town, right? You can't be a prophet in your own town. So when people are laughing at you and you tell them, man, this is what I'm gonna do, right? Even if you don't quite believe it yet, write it down, right? Read it to yourself every day, believe it, eventually it'll come true. It'll come true. Um, so be the leader, make it happen. And leadership rule number one for me, guys, again, is no, or people don't care about what you know, they want to know you care,
Yeah.
right? People got to know that you care about them genuinely, not that you're in it for yourself, and that comes with sacrifice.
Yeah, for sure. Leadership is sorely lacking right now. I love that you brought that up. I really do.
Yeah.
It's something I just put a podcast out on it, just the other day, about the crisis in young men today. So it's something we're going to be talking a lot about. And honestly, I'll probably see if I can get you back on just to talk about that, for a little while.
Yeah.
But with all the teaching and mentoring that you do. So, um, George, I appreciate all your time and you coming on here and sharing the way you have for all these guys who listen. We have a lot of folks who tune in, and they tune in because we bring on people like you, who really do give a damn and who understand kind of what really matters in the world. So thank you
Right.
for doing that today.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. And like I said, this is what I live for. I love this, being able to pass on all this stuff that's been in here for years and years and years, and I think it's important, right? And people use the analogy iron sharpens iron, um, and there's some truth to that. But the reality is, like, these next generations is they need this.
Yeah.
We've lost um the grandpa elephants, you know what I mean? The grandpas of the world, we've lost that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. Thank you again. Appreciate it very much. Um, Gentlemen, this has been another episode of The Power Man. The reason that we bring on powerful men like this to talk to you guys about, what they've done, what they've been through, is because if we can do it, you can do it too. Nobody is standing up here saying, "Hey, we know more than you do." We're all standing up here saying, "We've made a lot of mistakes." And we hope that, our words can help you to avoid one of the many scars that we carry with us. And that's why you guys tune in. That's why we bring these people on. And I hope that it helps. You guys, you're worth it. You have to do what you have to do. You got to find a way to lead your family, but you also have to realize that you're worth the work. Your family is worth the work. And at the end of the day, you just have to believe it. Until next time.